Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game that I played recently in which I was able to get an opposite colored bishop position and show the second rule of them, which is of course that they favor the attacking side. Let's get into it. I start off the game with d4 and my opponent goes d5. I play the move bishop to f4, which is the London system, which is a very, very reputable opening in which white gets a solid pawn structure with e3 and c3, and then puts the knights out like this bishop d3 and castles, and we get a pretty nice positional game. A lot of fun stuff there. In either case, we get into a main line here with knight f6, e3, and then my opponent decides to switch it up with the move g6, which, if you haven't seen many of these London positions, this move doesn't really look that odd because, of course, he's just trying to fiend Keto his bishop. But this is not a common move whatsoever. This is like one of the far sidelines. This is like my opponent woke up, decided to play Grunfeld, and then just didn't care what white was playing at all. So it's just a little bit odd, and it allows me to get some nice play very, very quickly, and I immediately take advantage of this little inaccuracy here, and I play the move c4, going straight after the center, since of course my opponent didn't do anything with it, so I'm gonna put pressure on him, right? c4. My opponent goes c6, of course, strengthening the center. I would have rathered, if I was him, you could probably play like e6 or something. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe you can probably just, I don't even know. c5 kind of kills the game. Bishop g7 makes sense. You're kind of going with your plan. But at the very least here, you have to capture back with the knight, which you don't really want to do, since bishop g3 and knight c3. Sorry, bishop g3 is wrong. Why is bishop g3 so bad? Oh, c5 is very strong. No, you have to play bishop e5, takes, and I mean, you get pressure on the knight, and white is probably doing pretty well here since white has center control, right? Like queen b3, knight c3, rook d1, you get some pressure here. And this isn't really what black wants. Of course, if you take with the queen, there's knight c3 immediately. So in either case, he plays c6. It's fine. I decide to play knight c3, put more pressure on the center. It's completely average move. This is kind of where the knight wants to go. If you play c4, bishop to g7, I just developed my other knight to f3, castles, and rook to c1. Of course, the rook really wants to be on the square in these d4 positions, since the c file commonly opens up, and normally white wants to be the first to the party, because if black gets there first, it becomes a little awkward, a little bit dry, a little bit drawish, and you don't want that. Also, white normally is able to get there first. Bishop to e6 played, putting pressure on my e-pawn, and I decide here to, instead of going with common moves, which would probably be takes, knight d5, bishop g3, takes. You can't really take this pawn. This is a little bit dangerous to do, because at the very least, white can get some powerful initiative here, with queen a4 probably. I'm just wrong today. I guess just bishop d3, h4, h5, get some sort of attack, argue that these pawns really aren't that strong here, and white has too much development for the pawn, but I guess that is a little bit difficult. Instead of doing that, I decided to play the move queen to b3, which I kind of already planned, because I was just looking for certain tactics like this. I wanted to put some pressure on b7 in these lines, and I thought, okay, well, my opponent played a little bit strange. Let's get a little aggressive here. My opponent goes b6 after a long think, a little bit of a strange move. The point of b6, of course, you just want to defend the pawn. But the reason why this move isn't actually that good is because normally when black plays the move b6 in these London structures, they want to put the bishop on the square so they can target this, right? But if the bishop's already developed, right, then this is just a bad move, and white is just doing very, very well. And I try to exploit it immediately with the move c takes on d5. Quickly putting pressure and just trying to open up the c file with some ideas of here and here, maybe after taking the knight. You know, pretty standard stuff. Knight takes d5. I have to take, because if I move back, then he's going to have some discovered attacks on my queen. Let's say bishop g3. This is already losing after knight takes e3, opening up an attack on my queen. Can't do this, right? So I have to take. My opponent takes back with the bishop, and I decide to play this move bishop to c4. Very, very logical. My point is that if he takes my bishop, I'm going to take back with the rook, have immense pressure on the square. I'm already threatening this and taking on c6. And my next moves are very, very easy. Let's say my opponent doesn't really do anything. I don't know. Say they defend the pawn. This doesn't look like the worst thing in the world. I'm going to castle. I'm going to play knight e5, and probably white is just better, right? We're going to double up here. This pawn is a huge weakness. Now you can't play c5 ever. And yeah, I'm borderline winning at this point. By the way, c5 here is like one of the top engine moves, which is a little bit crazy. In any case, he decides not to take that bishop, and there's a couple moves he can play here. He can go bishop to d5, to e4. Don't know how I messed up. The bishop's on d5 right now. You can go bishop to e4, which is kind of trying to stay around. But if we're looking at this logically, I think the bishop is just nearly trapped after a move like knight to g4, knight to g5 takes rook g1. See, the bishop has no squares, and if the bishop ever goes back here, then takes is actually just almost crushing, right? Even a queen trade there, and like getting the rook over to the 7th rank is worth much more than a pawn. So we'd be doing well. Instead, he decides to, after a decent bit of thought, he decides to take on f3, which makes sense, probably the best option for him, because if he takes my bishop, I get my rook involved, and if he doesn't do that, he's probably just going to be worse. We can look at that line here. Is knight g4 like the best move? Knight g5 is the best move. Cool. And like taking here. Oh, it's just bishop takes f7 check there. We don't even have to go through all of that. This is just pretty easily winning. Okay. In either case, whatever. Bishop takes f3. Recapture. And my opponent plays the move knight to d7. And I realize that I can win a pawn. I thought of something very, very cool. I see a couple things here. I see, okay, this pawn is hanging. This pawn is just hanging. My rook, if my bishop moves, the pawn will be attacked, right? So how do I move my bishop with an attack? Of course, taking here and just sacking the bishop doesn't really work. He takes back with the rook. He doesn't. I don't have any more play. If I had a knight, maybe it could be anything, but it's not. It's just never anything. So we don't play that, right? So the bishop can't move like that. Coming back here, there's no threats. This square just hangs a bishop, and the only move that I could see that actually makes a threat for the bishop, and I'm actually kind of happy that I saw this move just in general, is the move bishop to a6, which I played pretty quickly. And the idea is, if my opponent doesn't do anything, if my opponent saves the pawn by playing c5, for example, I thought the rook was trapped. It is. It is trapped. But my opponent has some very, very sneaky options in order to make out with like enough material, like e5. I can't really do this because e takes f4, and I'm actually just like worse here. Takes. I just lose too many pawns. But I just thought that I was doing really, really well. Like even here, I can take. He goes rook b8. I don't know, bishop d5, I have some pressure, this pawn is going to be lost, but I mean, maybe like this bishop is going to be strong in the future. You never know, and I just thought that I was doing pretty well, but then my opponent plays e5 and my fun is gone. And I realize immediately that, oh no, I kind of messed up, and I completely missed e5. e5 is a good move. e5 is a very nice move. Of course, he's just trying to save his rook, because if he doesn't do this, he's going to stop the rook. He's going to lose the rook, and he doesn't want to do that, which is pretty obvious. And yeah, now I have to actually like play the game, which is unfortunate. I don't really like playing the game, and so I played d takes e5. Pretty logical move. I take in the center. I have to. If I don't, I lose my bishop, or if I go back, this pawn structure is horrendous at the very least, even if I lose a pawn like this. So I can't do that. So I have to take. My opponent recaptures with the knight. I think here for a while, and I realize, okay, what is my opponent doing? He's giving me a pawn, first of all. He's threatening this. I can play king e2. I can defend it. It's fine. Or if we're being a little bit cooler, we can take. Takes, and then the knight loses defense of the pawn, so we can take this pawn, and then we're up a pawn. And when I saw that, I of course first check like, okay, is there any like stupid tricks? Is there any reason why I can't do this? And there isn't. He's just giving me a pawn, but somehow, the evaluation of the position is only plus 0.1. This all happens. Takes, bishop takes e5, and rook takes on c6. And in fact, black is nearly better here. But like, why? Why is black better? And that's a question that like really is confusing to me. The reason why black is better here is because white's king is a little bit too exposed to be doing well here. Like if my king was like on this square with the rook here and this pawn just dropped back a little bit, then white would probably just be like much better. But with this open file here, my king being stuck in the center, I actually have a bit of an issue developing, a bit of an issue like saving myself. For example, a line queen d7, my rook goes back to c1. Let's say my opponent goes rook af to d8, threatening like some checkmate or something. Rook d1 is an automatic draw. Take. Even if he doesn't win the pawn, for example, like he can play like whatever, and it's still a draw. Like I can save the pawn, still a draw. There's nothing to be done. Why? It's a draw because opposite colored bishops. There's nothing here. There is just over. Game over. Draw for draw agreed, right? And that's not like my goal. Like I don't want to just simplify into a draw. Yeah, I'm playing someone strong, but if I don't have to do that, I don't want to, and I decide to play a little bit more accurately. And my opponent does play queen d7. Of course, it's a very logical move. Hitting my rook, going for some play, and I think here for a little bit. And I try not to make the game easy. This is making the game easy. Of course, I see rook c1. This is making the game easy. This is just a draw. I can't help it. I wouldn't be able to really do anything. I'm just so I start trying to make threats. And I play the move bishop to b5. Of course, very logical move. I'm threatening rook takes g6. Check on the king, discovered attack on the queen. So my opponent has to do something. He can't stay on d7, which is nice. Queen to f5 is the move chosen. I think for a little bit, and I decide, okay, well, at least he's attacking the pawn. I was always thinking about this move f4, but I didn't really like this for some reason. I thought my opponent could like get some interesting play here, with like at the very least this move hitting my rook, and then the pawn is hanging. Then he gets like some play here, then some play on like the d file, and then like you can like see how like you can like start seeing ghosts here. The position is a little bit scary. Plus, by the way, there's queen to b1 ideas trying to win the rook. So okay, we can't play f4. Well, we can, but this is just kind of like bad. Like this is at least a draw, and at most like black wins, right? So we don't want to do this. By the way, bishop takes f4 is just winning on the spot. Great. Oh right, yeah, obviously, my bad. In any case, that didn't happen. I saw that probably is bad. I don't know. I didn't really ask myself after the game. Maybe I didn't see it. I don't know. The game happened like a couple hours ago. I don't remember everything. And I decided instead to play the move king to e2. Pretty logical. Now my king is stuck in the center permanently, but my pawns are safe. Everything is good. My pieces are a lot more active than my opponent's pieces, and probably white is better. And I really thought white was a lot better. I didn't see any sort of compensation for my opponent. Yes, my pawns are doubled, but they're doubled in a way that gives my pawn structure like some good stuff. Like the pawns are not bad here. You can't argue that the pawns are misplaced in this position because they just aren't. The pawns are fine. And for some reason, the engine still gives plus 0.3. I don't even get it. My opponent thinks for a little bit. Plays rook f to d8. Of course, taking a file is never bad. In all honesty, I would have rather rook a to c8, trying to like take over this file. I can't ever do this, right? Because this pawn is always hanging. Like for example, rook takes c6, rook takes c6. This is probably possible, right? Like it looks like the bishop is almost trapped. There's always queen to g4, and there's like some stupid things here. Like you don't want to get involved in this garbage. So I can't really get into that, and I don't want to draw. A draw is like my least in all honesty, draw is the worst option in chess. Like, if you can't have fun in a game, you can't like have like a winner, then draw is just, it's just disappointing, you know? So we're not playing for a draw. And luckily my opponent didn't want to either. Rook f8. I think for a little bit. I decide after a decent amount of thought that, okay, my bishop is a little bit misplaced. I'm not targeting anything here. I don't really like where it is. Let's bring it back. Bishop d3. Very logical move. I'm just attacking the queen. I'm having eyes on the king. Now my pieces are all kind of coming over here. I'm getting cognizant of this pin on this f7 pawn, which actually could prove useful very, very soon. And in all honesty, black has to be careful here because there are already tactics like everywhere. Queen to d7 play. I think for a decent amount of time about where to put my rook, and I end up thinking, okay, there's like rook c4 that I can play, and the idea is like going over here. Now I was thinking about this, but the reason why I didn't play this, maybe this was wrong. The reason why I didn't play this, I didn't really like the fact that my opponent has I've blocked my queen. I just don't want to do this. Right, like I feel like my queen is like my best piece right now. It's the most active. It kind of does a lot for my position. And if I'm blocking my queen like this, it's not that good. Even if I'm saving this, at the very least, I thought he had bishop takes b2. The point is I can't take because this is just a game over, right? So I didn't want to do this, and I decided, okay, the best practical option here, the best practical option in this position to keep life in the position and to try to win the game is to play the move rook back to c2. The point is I'm defending the pawn against everything. There's an idea of like doubling up, like I might want to go here, and like try to take on g6 with an open attack on the queen. That's like a future prospect, maybe could happen, I don't know, hopefully will happen. And yeah, besides that, I think I'm doing just fine. My opponent here decides to play rook a to c8. I think for a little bit about what to play. I kind of liked where my rook was positioned, and I decided, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go with another plan here. I really don't want to trade rooks. I feel like trading rooks is not correct here, even though it is actually the top-ended move. Because I thought, okay, I'm giving him the c-file. Now I cannot take back the c-file. My rook is a little bit passive over here. Like I can't really get into a decent square for it. And I didn't really see that much of a plan after I had already traded too much material here, right? Like, this is probably going to end in a draw. Now, the more heavy pieces I trade, the closer we get to an opposite colored bishop endgame. And those are nearly always drawn, even if one side is up 2 pawns. They're like most of the time drawn. And I really didn't want to do that, so I went with my other plan, which was simply to play rook to d2, going after this battery with an idea of here in the future. Or maybe very soon, who knows. My opponent decided to play queen e7. By the way, I was always like really unsure of what would happen if my opponent played queen e6. Like I thought this was like always an idea for him, but I guess it's not somehow. Why is this so bad? Queen e6, fe6, and f4, bishop g7. You can't take here, of course, the defended. Bishop g7, I play... I don't know, I don't really understand this position. Why is this so... Oh, there's an idea of b3 in here, and this pawn is a huge weakness. And I'm still up a pawn in this position. Okay, yeah, I can see it. No, that is actually a problem. That is a problem, yeah. For some reason, I was always like kind of worried about queen e6. I always thought queen e6 was like a nice simplification. Maybe not here, maybe at some point during the game, but I always thought that it was a decent idea. And instead queen e7 makes sense, of course. He's just trying to get out of the pin. It's a logical move. Not really that much to it, but you know, makes sense. And here, I blunder. And here I do something very, very, very stupid. Instead of going with my original plan, which was basically saying, okay, this pin is very strong. I like all my pieces kind of being pointed over here. Let's start an attack. Let's play h4. This is like the move that I wanted to play, and it's the top mentioned move. This is the best move in the position. And I in all honesty, if I had seen why my move I played was wrong, I would have played this move in a heartbeat, because this is just like obviously correct. He can't really do anything. He can't play h5 for example, because bishop takes g6, right? You can't take due to this pin. And like this pawn is falling, all the pawns are falling, the g file is opening up, the king is exposed. Like I'm winning here pretty easily. So I thought that maybe this is like a decent idea in the future. I don't know what he's gonna play. He might play like, I don't know, maybe he has this queen e6 now. It's still bad, but whatever. And instead I decided, okay, I want to play h4. But one of the points here that I was a little bit worried about, a move that I wanted to play like for a while, I wanted to play this move f4. But the reason why I couldn't play it here, and the reason why I couldn't play it for like a while, is that my opponent would have queen to g4 check, which is a problem. Let's say, okay, let's say rook d2, of course, just like a nonsense move, I don't know, rook here, and I play f4. This is losing on the spot. Queen g4, I'm dead. I can't play f3 because of queen g2. And like I'm losing the rook and I'm getting mated. And if I don't do that, if I go king f1, I mean, look at this position. Let's get like a better understanding. Let's say my opponent goes king g7, right? Now f4, it's just game over, right? King f1, now we have rook c1 check. And yeah, we're just losing. And if we go here, like everything is winning. For example, bishop takes f4, right? I can't take because like this is just death. Rook c1 is just death. Everything is just death. Death is lurking behind every single corner, and I would be dead lost. Just really nothing I can do. This is not even a hard thing to see, right? So that's an idea that I wanted to play for a while, and I decided, okay, well, after this move queen e7, now he doesn't have any of these queen g4 checks after f4, so I'm like, okay, I can play h4 next. But what do I play first? I play f4. Not realizing that the pawn is pinned. And I just lose a pawn. And if not for this move, if not for the move f4, this game would have been actually nearly perfect. I ended up playing this game at 90% accuracy after all was said and done. If not for f4, probably would have been a lot higher because f4 takes off a lot of marks. It's pretty funny that I didn't see this, but you know, what the heck? It's chess. It's just stuff happens. And now I realize, okay, I'm a little bit shell shocked. I was like, okay, whoa, I just totally missed that move. I just totally hung a pawn. What am I doing? Let's recalibrate. Like, let's recalibrate everything. Let's figure out my plan. What was my other plan? Okay, what was my other plan? We're gonna play h4. We're gonna play h4. We're still gonna try it. And I realized, okay, I lost my pawn advantage, but I still think that white has a better position. For some reason, by the way, it keeps saying black is better. I don't even understand. How is black better here? Like, in all honesty, I don't get it. How is black better in this position? Because black is just like dead law. It feels like black is just like positionally worse because my pieces are all staring at his king. He has this huge attack coming into him. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why I would be worse here, right? Because I don't know, maybe some stockfish line, but every move by the computer says it's better for black. So I don't even get it. Instead of any of the moves the computer suggests, my opponent thinks for a little bit, plays rook to e8, which makes sense. By the way, he spends 2 minutes on this move, which is a little bit insane. The point is, of course, that he is threatening bishop takes here. For example, h5, bishop takes e3, takes, queen takes e3, and I get checkmated pretty quickly by the king here. There's queen f3 at the very least. I'm not going to win that position. And if king f1, like at the very least, queen takes d2, but it's probably even worse than that. You probably has a faster mate. Yeah, queen f3 is quicker. In any case, after bishop rook to e8, I think for a little bit, and I decide to start playing faster. I decided to start speeding up. I realized that, okay, my opponent is terrified. My opponent is scared. Spending 2 minutes on a move is the sign of someone who kind of just got put into a better position and has no idea what to do. No idea what to do. So I play fast. He's attacking the pawn. We defend the pawn. Bishop all the way back to b1. Back to b1. Played in a minute, actually. It did spend a long time. Well, maybe I decided to speed up on the next move. I don't know. Yeah, but I thought this move was very nice. The point is that I want to keep this diagonal because I want to keep these threats on his king. And yeah, now my queen opens up to defend the pawn, so there's none of this anymore, right? I'm better here. By the way, a little bit the trick, always watch out for tactics. The queen is lost in this position. You gotta remember that. Any move is good here. Like queen f6, for example, is probably... No, I have to control this square, so queen b4 or queen b7 are the only ways to play. In any case, he didn't do that, and instead decided to play the move queen to b7 first. After another 2-minute think. And now my opponent spent 4 minutes in relatively small amount of moves. 2 moves is not a lot. So here I decided to start speeding up. Sorry, I thought I decided to start speeding up in the last move, but whatever. Maybe I guess I was wrong. Here I decided to start speeding up. I decided to play the most normal move. I thought for like a decent amount of time, and I decided to play rook to g1. Pretty normal, right? Just moving out of the way of the pin. And it feels to me like my opponent is kind of losing the thread. He doesn't really know what he's doing anymore. His bishop is honestly a little bit weak on that square, like king to f1. Of course, there's always lines like this, so maybe king to e1. But then queen f3. I guess there's still some tactics here. But I always have ideas like rook to g4. I'm still threatening the move h5. He can't play h5 himself. Probably one of the best moves is king to g7. But even here, right, there's all of these ideas. Bishop to f5. Crazy move. I think I play something like this a bit later, and yeah, it's tough. It's really tricky here for my opponent. In any case, queen to e7 back is what he does, which is a little bit awkward. He's going after my pawn now, but this is just not this just doesn't work, right? Because actually I thought for a while here there's a lot of ideas. First of all, of course, he's threatening the pawn, and I should push it, right? I should go with my attack. He's allowing me h5. I should play h5. But there's all these like nasty ideas of my opponent getting in, him like sacrificing the bishop. There's ideas of like this check coming in, trying to win the rook. There's ideas of this rook coming down. This rook is really like a monster, by the way. It's not friendly. It's not a friendly rook at all. If I could trade it off like for this rook, then I'd probably just be completely winning. But yeah, queen e7 is tough, and you start getting into your own head here. I did end up playing h5 after a long think, 30 seconds. Again, maybe a little bit too much. Maybe I should have played this a little bit faster, but it's a tough decision to play, especially after my opponent's next move, which is queen to h4, allowing me to get my devastating attack against his king, allowing me to take on g6 and just rip him apart. Because of course, if I take, I win, right? He can't take. He's just dead. He's gonna get checkmated. But the idea of queen h4 was never to lose the game. The idea of queen h4 was, okay, he's threatening to take the pawn, so I have to do something with it. And when I move it, he's gonna play that move anyway. He's gonna play queen to h5. He's going to check me, and then his idea is that he wants to like get onto the back rank. He wants to get something like this going. He has like still this pressure against my king here, and it's terrifying. For example, sample line, hg, queen to h5, king to f1, rook c1, here, queen g4, king h1, mate. Pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. I can sack my queen if I want, but that's just delaying the inevitable. So yeah, needless to say, this position is not easy. This position is very difficult to play, but I did end up having to steel my nerves, and I played the move h takes on g6 after 2 minutes of thought, and now I'm down to 111. But I calculated everything correctly. h takes g6, my opponent plays queen to h5, and now I play king to e1. And I realized here that the classic move rook to c1 doesn't work. It's nothing. There's nothing there. Because after rook to c1, I play rook d1. And if you trade everything, I'm gonna be busting in. The bishop is still hanging. Here's a simple line. Takes, 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 takes. I'm threatening the pawn. I'm threatening the bishop. You have to move the bishop. And I take on h7 or f7. Either way. I can just rip apart everything, and then I'm up 2 pawns in an endgame. Probably taking here is better. Well, okay, first of all, you have to take. And bishop takes h7. And it's over. And if you don't do that, if you allow me to, if you take the pawn, I'm just going to take the bishop, and I'm up a bishop. So, wait a second. Wait a second. I'm winning the game. I'm actually winning the game. This whole idea is flawed. This whole idea is just wrong. But how is it still equal? How is this position, after all this time, still equal? That's the infuriating part. Stockfish always finds a way. Every single line is +4, +5 for white. Except for one really, really stupid thing. H takes on g6, bishop takes on g6, rook c1, rook d1, rook takes d1, here, 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 f takes g, e takes f4. I am actually going to be up a pawn in this endgame, but it is just a draw because it's a rook endgame. King of 7, king d2. I'm able to defend this pawn, but it's doubled. There's nothing to be done. It feels like white should be pushing here because white has the extra pawn, but at the end of the day, it's just equal. And if that happened, I would be infuriated. By the way, there's also this with check, but this just loses because I can't go here because rook c1 is actually mate this time. That would be unfortunate. That would be a nice way to lose the game. Instead, that didn't happen. And my opponent, not really understanding h takes g6, decides to play rook c1. Now I'm able to win the game. Bishop rook to d1. Takes, takes. Sorry. Yeah, that did actually happen. Takes, takes, and queen to a5 was his last hope. But now I simply play king to f1, and there's nothing left. Nothing left. I'm threatening the bishop. I'm threatening to win all these pawns. And the queens are still on the board. That's the best part about this position. If the queens are not on the board, it's just an endgame where white is better. But with the queens on the board, it's just a middle game where white is going to checkmate black. So that's nice. Queen b5, bishop to d3, hitting the queen. My opponent had one trick that I actually wanted to look at a little bit. I thought my opponent could play this move rook to d8, which is a little bit tough. But actually, this just wins completely for me. I thought g takes f7 from afar, and that was going to play bishop to g6, but I just missed that this was pinned from afar. I mean, I had low time. I have an excuse. But no, I actually have to, like, go here and kind of lose some pawns. It's not like the best line ever. In fact, I just have this move g takes h7, king to h8, and rook to g8, and I just do this, and that'd be nice. That'd be nice. By the way, I can probably just probably in this position after rook d8, I can probably take the queen. Like, I don't think this is that bad. Take here, take, take, take. Well, you can't take because the bishop is saying, yeah, I guess it's just the same endgame where I'm up 2 pawns. Well, I'm up 1 pawn, but in this case, the opposite color bishops actually do not help my opponent because this 2-on-1 is going to be too strong, where I can make it a 2-on-0, which is always nice. In any case, my opponent doesn't do that because queen to d7. I take on f7. King takes on f7, and to end the game, I play the move bishop to g6. And he simply resigns because that's a check on the king and a discovered attack on the queen. If my opponent goes king to e7, I trade everything, take the bishop. I'm up a rook in an endgame. It's just over. Also, I'm up for like 40 seconds, which is nice. And in all honesty, the whole reason I was able to do all this, the whole reason I was able to get this whole attack going, is because of opposite colored bishops. One of the few times like this actually happens, I'm never able to like really see how opposite colored bishops are able to do this. I mean, like a lot of you probably, you've just been told, oh, well, this is good here, this is good here, you should do this here. Like, this is like my first time, maybe not my first time, but like one of like the few times I've had where I've actually been able to like witness firsthand that like the opposite colored bishops really do help with attacking. They really do help with attacking, because if not for that, I'd be fine. If my opponent had a light squared bishop instead of this dark squared bishop, I don't know, maybe my opponent would have some weak dark squares, but he'd probably be fine. You put the bishop here, you trade the bishops off, and there'd be no attack. But in this case, it's very hard to defend, and yeah, that's how I was able to make problems. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found it entertaining, instructive, all of the above. A little bit of a longer video today. I know I've been making some longer stuff lately. Maybe I'll do something a little bit shorter later, but in any case, whatever. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found this entertaining, instructive, all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, don't let YouTubers tell you to, and yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.